Welcome to Indian Podcasting Revolution, and I'm your host Rohit Kokana. In our newest series, PodPeeps, we pull back the curtains and step behind the microphone with some of the nation's most successful, innovative, and influential self-starter podcasters. From sharing their unique podcast journeys to unearthing their creative processes, PodPeeps is not just about the podcasting; it's about the people, the brave and visionary individuals who dare to use their voice and change the game. Today, we are thrilled to have a guest who is not just breaking barriers but also redefining how we think about software testing. Meet Gunesh Patil, the ingenious mind behind Liberated Tester. His podcast takes listeners on an enlightening journey through innovative testing techniques and mindset hacks that are steering up the software testing arena. Get ready to unravel the art of thinking outside the box and join the mindset revolution. Trust me, whether you are a seasoned tester or a curious onlooker, you won't want to miss this. So, are you ready? Let's tune into the voices of change, the voices of India. Welcome to PodPeeps on the Indian Podcasting Revolution. Hi Gunesh, welcome on the Indian Podcasting Revolution show. It is such a pleasure to host you.
Thank you, Rohit. It's been a pleasure. We have been talking about like a month now, I guess.
Yeah.
We have been in touch for quite a while, and I've been following the work. It's splendid. The first seasons of your other podcast that I was listening to, really well. I also took some inspiration from for my podcast from there, the way you want to structure and all. So yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for saying those kind words. And I really mean that, because then this medium, podcasting, has offered a lot of things to us. So it really becomes an important way to spread out whatever we have learned. And then we can guide the future podcasters or the people who are wanting to start their podcast, because we have seen this medium is growing quite rapidly. Every person wants to start a podcast. I don't know, like, is it a fascination or is it just a kind of a medium, like the comfort that a particular medium offers? But this has been a great journey for all of us. And with your podcast, Liberated Tester, I would like to know, like, what was your aim to start that particular thing? How did you name this? And did you find any gaps into your niche that you wanted to start this particular podcast? Because then, see, there are a lot of elements. YouTube was into picture because we had the ability to put out the videos as well. Then there is the blog. People can read and understand the topic better. But then you chose to start with a podcast, and that is doing so amazing. So I want to know, like, what was your thought process behind that?
Nostalgic question. It's been, I think I completed a year in last month, I guess.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it started as I don't know. It was not something on my mind at all. I had started this page long back. I think 1.5 years, or maybe possibly more than that. I think, and the whole name came out to be a bit of a thinking process that I had. And like you said, right, there was something missing in the field, and the missing thing was people were going more into the tools, more into the job interviews and the questions. So people were not really getting to the crux of the topic which we have. So there are a couple of aspects in software testing, right? I've been doing this for around now, what, 12 plus years, 12, 13 years now. So when I started, even that was why I was like selected and put like they show in Harry Potter. Right?
Yeah.
They just put a cap and then they show you the house. So that's how it happened. And I was put into testing. And on that particular evening, I think I was really unhappy, because throughout my college career, I was always doing something. I was developing something. I was working on the code. I was trying to stay updated with the things. So all these things were happening, and suddenly I got put into testing. So that one evening was really bad in terms of experience of crushing expectations kind of thing. But once we get started, once we had the training and all, right, I started liking thing. And I think I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this is because I'm from Pune and I like to show, well, in mild words, I like to show people their place, right? So that's that's how I perceived testing when we started testing, because it was all about finding faults. For here, it was not people; it was the software testing, the software that we are testing. So I could relate to it. And I think the traits were there in me because of the all the upbringing of Pune, right? I think that made me a really good tester in a good way. But also, like, there was a lot of founding things that happened through my schooling and other areas, which also helped me develop this kind of thinking, which I was able to apply. So coming back to the missing part in the niche, right? So the overall thinking process of the people was really missing. People would just go after the tools. People would just go after whatever is trending in the field right now, and without working on how they approach a problem, they would try to solve a problem just by applying a tool. And most of the time it might work, but it will not work as efficiently if you change the approach and then apply the tool. So that was one of the factor that I found missing. And I think the name comes from the same thing, that you have to think out of the box, right? You have to think. I mean, that's a very cliche term, but you have to think in a different way than it's been thought out traditionally, right? If you want to make a difference, if you want to be in the same rut all the time, then yeah, well, like, go ahead and use the traditional methods and do all these things. So when it comes to that, the analogy is like, why are we still not using bullock carts, right? Because we evolved, right? So that's how it is. So we have to evolve. Whatever is written, let's say 20, 30 years back, people are doing the same kind of testing. You can't keep doing in this space. And to know outside that, you need to have a bit of more thinking applied actually to your work. So that was one of the thing. Yeah, I think, and that's from where the liberated thing came from. I had a lot of other names also, like rebel tester and some other tester, and the rebel felt a bit, I don't know, it was not that much appealing. Then I started, and I have a habit of using thesaurus.com for a lot of things. So I just put it in free in thesaurus. They gave me a couple of suggestions, and like I liked liberated from there. So I was like, okay, this is the thing, we'll go for liberated tester. And obviously it was not taken, so that was also one of the things which was really good, and the name stuck. So yeah, that's how it is about the name. Coming back to your question of the medium, right? Why podcast, and also how podcast. So when I started the page, it was more about memes and all when I started actually, and I used to post memes and with all the Bollywood dialogues, because I watch. I mean, I can watch any movie for that matter. It doesn't it doesn't matter who's acting, who's doing. I also watch films from other languages as well. So I am more of a movie buff. So if anybody suggests me something, I will at least go and see a trailer and see if I like it or not. And I've sat through a lot of bad movies, as per se. So my friends have cursed me from time to time for that, for taking them along or making them watch on a TV on a Sunday morning or something like that. So yeah, we have had instances like that. So in that sense, the memes was very close to my heart. Memes and GIFs are very close to my heart. I use GIFs in all my presentations. People who have seen, even in the office presentation, I at least put one.
Oh,
So that's always there.
interesting.
Yeah. And when these memes were there, I thought this is not sustainable. I mean, this is not something that I could do for the rest of my life, right? And eventually, right, memes get distributed. There is always a trend, and then trends keep changing. So you can't really, and some trends you can't really relate to. Like there was a trend from the that startup series which was there, right, on Sony, that startup funding, what was that,
Shark
Shark
Tank.
Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of dialogues which are trending and all, right? So I didn't watch it. I can't relate to it, so I can't make a meme out of it because I don't know the context, even though I know a smaller context, but I can't do it. So I thought there has to be something original, and there has to be something that I relate to, and there is something that I can produce, not something which somebody said in a movie or series or something like that. So that was one motivation behind starting something. And second was by fluke, basically. I was sitting on a Sunday evening just browsing through Insta, and then I saw an ad. There's a guy who is now my mentor on the podcasting, Vijay Gautam. So that ad came across, and then it was like, okay, this Sunday I'm doing a masterclass, and join me for 2 hour masterclass and all. So I said, why not? I am free this Sunday. Let's do it. So I joined the master class, and then somehow I had a very strong intuition of joining the course that he was offering. And I said, I mean, it's only 6 weeks, and let's give it a try. If we can do that, we can do that. So that's how it started. Then I started taking his course. We used to meet on a weekly basis, all the community. We used to have question and answers and all these things. And it got me started really nice. And third thing why it stuck was, I mean, I had zero confidence in my voice when I started. So when I started, those first recording which you usually do, right, intro outro thing, I did that recording, and I posted it on our WhatsApp group which we had, and people were like, your voice is really good. I mean, and I never thought about it. Okay, I never thought that my voice could be a good voice for a podcast at all. And the feedback that I got really reinforced the thing that, okay, this is something that I can do, and this is something that feels authentic to me as well. So yeah, that's how podcast as a medium actually stuck with me. And yeah, hopefully it's going well. I was able to secure one sponsorship in the meanwhile. I have been i have been partnering with a lot of conferences as their media partner. There is also some merchandise that I was able to get out of the sponsorship money that I got. So yeah, the struggle is still on. There is also my work balancing that's happening. Yeah, I think it's going well, is what I think. Not so well, but it's going well. Yeah, at the end of the day, I think I'm happy doing these things. So
Absolutely.
that's all it makes. Yeah.
And it's quite a different medium is what I believe, because then it offers a lot of variations to what we are. And you rightly said about the voice, about how you started, and about having the mentor, because when I started I had no one. Like I was recording through the phone recorder, and then I never believed in my voice because I don't come from a media background. So for me it was the same story, like I was just sounding quite noob. Then I improved with the time. I came to know like how this medium works, what are the requisites that you have to follow, so that the journey becomes interesting one. And then the journey gets better as well, because you get to know people, you know how you are doing. And when I started in 2019, there were not many podcasts that were happening, or no one was teaching about it, though it was quite old into the European and American countries. So when did you come across the word podcast, Gunesh? I want to know, because then for me it was in 2011 that I came across the word podcast, but never paid an attention to it. So which was that particular time, or which podcast you were following, so that you felt that yes, I can also try my hands over it? And you did talk about the voice, but what I feel is that on a lighter note, we required, or we need a girlfriend or a boyfriend to tell our voice is good. Otherwise no one is going to say that.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, but I felt that difference in the recorded voice and the actual voice, which I think I have pretty stark difference in those two voices, is what I've come to learn about. So the recorded voice of mine is slightly more towards a bass category, which is there, and even normal voices, but the overall voice levels are quite low in my original voice. I think when mic comes along, I think that just happens naturally. So that's how it came to first podcast. I don't know, man. Actually, I never followed podcast before.
That usually happens.
I Yeah. Yeah, actually that happened. Something of this sort that I remember was way long back, 2011 or 2010 maybe, or even 2009 maybe, where there used to be the same, like the RSS only, but they were mostly used for blogs and other materials, right? So those RSS feeds I used to have for the news or for any other mediums, but never for a podcast actually. Then I think in 20, around that time, 2009 or 10 maybe, one of my friend got an iPod for me from US when he went to US. So in there was a thing called podcast. I was like, what the hell is podcast? I never heard about this. And I didn't know who to follow and what to follow, and even if that would be a bit of a help to me or not. But I saw that, and then while syncing through, I mean, you have to do an iTunes sync, right, for that. So, in the iTunes, I selected podcast, and then I saw searching for it. I don't know. I came across some weird thing. I think it was related to F1 or something. So that was and I listened to only one episode. There was nothing else after that. And I was like, this is not for me. I'm not listening to this. I would rather watch a movie. So that was the phase that I was in that time. And yeah, I mean, that time I had no idea of what podcast is and how it could have been. Yeah, I mean, and looking back, I think I don't know. I think it was better that I didn't knew what podcast is. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done this now. I
So
think
true.
that's
And you have another option that you're a movie buff, so you can always start a podcast around it. It may grow better and better, is what I feel. Now that you are into software testing, you have been running this particular podcast show, Liberated Podcast. So I want to know, like, though testing is something that you have to do practically, okay, you will be able to know the results after when you test that and when you get the results. So how does that particular learning happens through your podcast with respect to the testing thing? Because in what way you try to cover those topics, in what way those insights are offered to the audience so that they get to know the crux and how they can apply to that particular thing of testing things.
so the outline I do the outline of the show, right? I think that's something that my guests have also told me, that the way of or the questions that I usually have are are slightly more uncommon than what they have answered already. And also I try to stick to either one or two broad topics during the podcast so that we can focus or go deeper on those topics. So that's what I mean. In the beginning, first 2 3 episode, I was not sticking to that. I wanted to cover as much as possible from the person. So that was a thing that I did in first couple of episodes. But I think after that I slowly learned that it's not that you have to cover everything from a person. You have to cover what they specialize in, and what they are more passionate about is something that you have to cover more. And I think that realization came after 3 or 4 episodes, I think. That because the episodes started getting longer and longer, because I would keep chatting, the people would keep chatting, and all everything. We would go around like 2 hours of recording, and then I have to edit everything and do all these things. So yeah, even it happened in the recent ones also, but those conversations were more towards a very special topic or very specific things that they want to talk about. And I try to make sure that the questions are not something from what they have talked about or what they have been talking about on other podcast or what they delivered a keynote about. So I try to refrain from those questions. Even if they have had talked about it, I try to get to a different aspect of that same topic, rather than covering what they already have said and might probably be available on YouTube and all. So people might always go and listen there, right? So I think that was something, part of a process, which I think I try to evolve as I went through this whole year. And that has helped me a lot. I got a lot of good feedback from people saying, oh, we learned XYZ things from this particular episode, or this was the first time So I had a guest called Marit Pia Harvey. So somebody came to me and they said, oh, this was really the first time that I saw Marit talking about this particular topic. I was like, I'm really glad to know that you found that. And she has a massive experience in the field. I mean, she has been there for more than 25 years. And in that scope, you can't there is very less there's very less percentage that you could actually hit that particular note where you get a topic which they haven't talked about in last 25 years. So that was something that I thought, okay, now the process that I'm following is something good and it's reaping some benefits. And how I get these insights to people is mostly through my LinkedIn. So I keep posting about, maybe I usually break down the episode between 3 or 4 major things that we talked about, and then one of those would become my post, and then there would be 3 or 4 listicles, or maybe a story that they told or something like that would be posted on LinkedIn. And then people would start learning from those posts. And obviously they always listen to the podcast, and then they get some insights what they want to learn about.
That's quite a fascinating way, is what I believe, because then this is such a interesting topic or a niche that you are catering to. Because when you go into the search library, we won't be finding such shows a lot often. Because if you go into motivation or spirituality or entrepreneurship, there are a number of shows, but this is something which is very different one, is what I believe. Because software testing and then catering to a certain broad niche and then narrowing it down to software testing is something that I have seen very less into, say, the people who are on LinkedIn or who are doing podcast, is what I believe. Because then not everyone would be interested in doing something, because then they are working 9 to 5, वही कर रहे हैं और फिर
Yeah.
पॉडकास्ट में भी वही करना है, वही सुनना है, तो वो हो जाता है. So you're doing a great job, and you always talk about creating that liberated mindset for the software testers. So was it through your experience that you wanted to liberate yourself or like create a better mindset, and what that particular thing entails and why it's crucial for effective software testing?
Yeah, it actually comes, and the one thing that you said, right? A lot of people, if you go into some other categories, you'll find a lot of podcasts, and that actually happened with me when I was doing that course with Vijay. I was the only one who was doing a technical or a technology related podcast. All everything were either motivational or health or devotional or mythological, these kind of areas they were targeting. But when I was the only one who was in the technology area, there was one more guy who was working in technology area, but he wanted to do something related to a slight bit of combo fusion between meditation and things. His podcast is called Mind Mashed. There's a dear friend of mine, Piyush. He's doing really well. I think he got nominated for Hubhopper
Oh,
Wellness podcast also.
okay,
Yeah. So yeah,
great.
his podcast was really good. I like the way he mixes the things and all. But yeah, coming back to the question of software testing and doing that thing, right? And more about liberated mindset is, I think, like you rightly said, it comes from my experience and the way I've seen people working. I have seen people helpless in situations where they could have had a really good chance of doing those tasks if they had changed the way they think. So and that particular moment, I really felt very bad for those people just because they didn't know any other way of looking at things, right? I've seen people doing or testing same application for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and I was like, how can someone do that? I mean, the software keeps evolving and all; it's all
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
That's all great, but you're just doing one module of one software for last 3 years or 4 years, or you are in the same area. So let's say, for example, you have a big banking application and there are a couple of areas which are handled by a lot of people. So somebody might be doing onboarding, somebody might be doing loans, somebody might be doing payments. So some people were always there in the onboarding team, they never moved from that team. First, I think what I have observed is, first they had a fear whether if I move out, will I be able to do that with the same thing or not.
yeah,
Second, will I be able to catch on the things that they are talking about in that area of the application. And third thing was, oh, no, I am using this tool here, they're using the other tool there. How would I fit in there? It will take a lot of time to learn and all. And and that worries me actually, because throughout my career, I don't stay in one project for more than 2 years. Never. I've made it a practice. If I'm in the same team for 2 years, the one day after 2 years, I just go to manager, I say, I want to move out or give me something else. I can be in the same team, but I don't want the same role. And 2 years is a very long time, right? 2 years is like sar ke upar se pani kind of a thing. So I don't stay beyond 2 years in any role. Either I'll get some additional responsibilities, or I'll change the area that I'm working on, or I'll change the company. So that's how it has been. And most of the times it has worked out good for me. I get to learn a lot of things. I get to learn different applications, different way that they have been handled, or different things that people talk about, and obviously different people in different teams, right? and and that has helped me pretty well. I mean, having that open mindset, right? Having that open way of looking at things has really helped me in whole of my journey. And that's what I want people to understand, and then take it in that, okay, if even if we are, some people have a notion that, oh, testing is very boring, and I've got into testing and this is how my life is going to be. So it's all, matlab, they have already given up. Basically, I've seen people like this also, that they have already given up कि अब तो टेस्टिंग में आ गए, तो that's how it is going to be, और टेस्टिंग में है तो बस यही करना है. You can't you can't do anything else. That's how people think. And I feel really weird about that particular way of thinking, because it's okay. I mean, I was also thrown into testing, but you have to keep looking for ways that you can see. You have to make a living is the first thing. Exactly, you have to make a living, you have to earn something. So whatever you do is do you do, but when you do it, you have to live for it. So while doing, you should be living for it. You're not like, okay, हाँ चलो 9 बजे जाते हैं ऑफिस में, फिर हाँ आज क्या करना है, ये करना है, ओके हाँ ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, कल क्या करेंगे, कल भी यही करेंगे. It's not going to be like that, right? So that particular approach, I really find, I mean, I don't want people to be having that particular mindset. And because we are capable of lot of more things than just doing that thing. And some people realize it, some people take those steps, some people don't realize it because nobody ever told them, or they never experienced firsthand of what would happen if I did this, or उन्होंने कभी ऐसा देखा ही नहीं है कि एक कोई दूसरा आदमी है जिसने कुछ नया किया एंड ही सक्सीडेड. Most of the time they what have they have seen is, okay, ये बंदा, let's say take an example कि एक बंदा था and then he resigned, he put his own startup and that startup failed after 2 years. So, and the irony of our media is failures get highlighted more than success in most of the media. So those things get highlighted much more. I mean, there are handles like Good News Dog and other things, right? So they always put good news or very motivational things apart. But that again boils down to the algorithm that these social medias have. So more failure videos you watch, more failures videos you get. So that's how it works out, right? And that's one of the things that I wanted to change in people's mind, that okay, this is not all that bad. It might be bad, but it's not that bad. So there is a way out, and let's think about it, let's talk about it. And that's how I got other people also pulled into it. So, and I think in other countries, I think it's more about, I won't say it is more about upbringing, but it's more about the way they look at life. So in like, I was in UK for a couple of years, also in US couple of years. But what I have found is they have same respect for every level of job that is there, and that is something is not there in our society or our culture. Many a times people look down upon some of the jobs which are being done, and that happens in all the areas and all the ways of professions that are there. There will always be at least one role that people look down upon, and वो बोलेंगे कि हाँ अगर मेरे को ये मिल गया तो मतलब मैं गया, अब कुछ नहीं हो सकता मेरा. So that's how people look at it, but that's not the way to look at it, right? You can always do better in whatever you get. So that's what I believe in, and that's what I'm trying to get to people with that particular mindset, that it's not finished yet. So that's the message, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Loving your thought process, Gunesh,
Yeah.
because there's a lot to learn, and the kind of mindset you have developed being into that particular field is something which is very notable. Because then I know you get tested. Like, even when you are testing, you get tested first. So that you just have to create that particular mindset, willingness to work hard and then move ahead into your job or your profession. Because there are n number of opportunities. As you said that you were into foreign countries as well, you have spent a considerable amount of time and you have learned a lot from their experiences as well. And that gap you're trying to fill through your work, through your podcast, is something that amazes me a lot. And you have been doing this into the software testing niche, and you want to scale Liberated Tester for, say, like a considerable period of time. You have to grow that particular show. So there is always a plan into a podcaster's mind that how can I get those collaborations, partnerships, or expansion thing into the pipeline. So what are the processes that you are following? Because then people are obsessed with numbers. अगर मेरे इतने followers है, इतने downloads है, listens है, तभी मुझे वो collaborations, partnership opportunities मिलेंगी. But that is not the case. You can get started with the sponsorships, partnerships, collaborations from the first episode itself. So how you have been doing that particular thing, would like to know from you.
I think the most crucial part of that is the way you build relationships always helps. If you always, I mean, and that this has been talked about by a lot of people who are into personal branding, into building a brand, and all those people, right? But even if it sounds very marketing type, it's actually truth that the way you build relationship with people actually helps you get through the things. And and I have observed this firsthand. But the way I approach it, because I want people to have very tool agnostic, or I don't want people to be bound to something when they want to do their job. Even if they don't have anything at hand which might be solving their problem, they should be able to solve a problem in a different way. So I also did the same things. So it was like, you can't get a sponsorship until you get XYZ, and then you do that, right? So what I started doing is, people do a lot of free conferences, a lot of free seminars, and all these things. So I said, why not offer them a free media partnership? So it doesn't cost me anything. It is not costing them anything. I mean, they are spending things, but they are able to spend and offer that content to free to people. So there are not always things that people will always know that these kind of things are happening. So there will always be some area of industry which will not know about this thing, and they should know about this particular thing that is happening. Even if, let's say, 1% of, or even 0.5% of that group is helped by attending that particular webinar or attending that particular conference, it's purpose fulfilled, right? I mean, and 1% of 100 is one person, right? So even if it helps one person to maybe change his direction or get something more that he wants from that particular role, it's worthwhile of doing it. So that's how I started connecting with people. That, okay, if you're doing a free conference, let me be your media partner. I'll promote your conference to people or whoever I'm in touch with, and then we will maybe go for another conference which is happening somewhere else. So that's how I started connecting with people who were doing conferences on a free basis, just to help the community. And even I was starting on the same note, that I wanted to help people get more attention of what's happening in the industry. And they, not everyone is connected to everyone. So there is always people who don't know about anything that's happening. So I said, why not be the announcer for those people, and then let them know that this is happening, and please join if you can. It's free. So I mean, it's nobody's loss. So why not? So that's how I started connecting with people. That's how I started reaching out to people, saying, okay, this is something that I'm doing also. And I really love the way people appreciate that approach, right? And I've never been let down by anyone when I approach them like this. And that's what I love about, at least that's what I've seen in software testing field, that whoever I reached out to till now, they have never declined. They're always open to talk. They're always open to share their experiences. They're always open to help people. And and that's what actually kept me going. Because if people were not ready to come on the show, then there was no show, right? So that is one thing that I'm very fortunate about and very grateful about, that I have those kind of people around me who are okay to come on the show, who are okay to share their experience, who are okay to spend 2.5 hours, 3 hours with me from their time to actually share their experiences with me. And some of the people have even adjusted their schedules to make the recording. So in all the way, it again comes down to the way you connect with people. Because I connected with them, I said, okay, this is something that I'm doing. If you wanted to be part of it, I would love you to be part of it. So let's do this together. I'll just need 2 or 3 hours of your time. So they are like, okay, yeah, definitely we'll do. And these are very busy people. I mean, they a lot of them do consulting, a lot of them do a lot of other keynotes, conferences, and they're traveling all the time. And even from there, they actually made time for me, which I'm very, very grateful about. That people were okay to make that time. And some of the, I think this is something which is there on my board. There are still 7 or 8 stickies which are still there. So I have not been able to reach out to them. That I reached out to them, but then again, my work came in between. There are a lot of things happening on the work side, so I couldn't actually get in touch with them. And there are still 2 episodes which are still recorded, but I was not able to edit them because of all the things that are happening around me. So yeah, I mean, these things keep happening, but the way, and the one thing that you said about numbers and downloads, right? I think if you make that connection with that person or whoever you want to reach out, I don't think those numbers matter, because they have seen your work. You have already shown your capability, and they are okay to trust you on whatever you're doing. So I never actually shared my download numbers with anyone whom I've met.
Likewise.
So yeah, I never shared that, and there was no need of sharing that, because we already had that trust that okay, he's doing something that is definitely going to help the community, definitely going to get us forward as a community. So they don't really care about numbers. They care about the way you approach it. Your intent is very, very, very important, is what I've observed in that whole 1 year. I've also got rejections, but apart from that, I mean, you always have to. There was an era of cold calling, right? And so so you have to be cold messaging also happens on LinkedIn. So you always get rejected. I mean, that's nothing. So, but I think those rejections happen because you are not aligned with each other. And whoever you reach out and whoever get accepted, once you are aligned, then it doesn't matter what is the background of it, or they don't really care about other numbers or other things, because they know you personally now. They have that trust, right? So
Right. And I very much agree on the alignment part, because then a lot many people keep on sending me messages or email that I want to get on your show and we can do it. But then again, it's not just about calling them on my show and having that 30-45 minutes of conversation. It has to be on to the some other storyline. It has to connect with the audience, because then whatever we are doing, it is for ourselves to improve. It is for the people to get value out of it so that they learn from it, and each and every person will be having a good time, because then we are investing our quality time into it. It's not just that we have to fill the calendar gap or something like that, or we are free to do all of this stuff. It has got purpose, so we all have to know that podcasting with purpose will yield greater results, is what I feel. And about that particular, like building the connections and reaching out to the people with no gain or loss, is something that I loved most, because then I have been hesitating to do that particular thing. But now with your advice, your tips, I would be definitely reaching out to more and more people, because then यार try करने में क्या हर्ज है, देखते हैं क्या results आएगा. I have been doing it in past, like I have done it in past but not recently. But definitely that approach should be tested and tried, and
yeah.
you are a serial tester, so that is going to definitely work for me,
Yes,
is what I
yes. No,
believe.
it helps. Even, I mean, even I was not really up for it, those things. Even in like last couple of 4 or 5 months, I completely stopped reaching out to people. I was not at all available for whole podcasting thing. But I still got few DMs saying, okay, this is something that we have. Would you like to be a collaborator and all? So some or the other way, it actually lands into you, right? So that's how the connections, again, the connections help you. So that's what goes around comes around, is what they say, right? So
Absolutely.
that's how it is. Yeah,
And Gunesh, when you call upon guests, there is always an intent that you have to fulfill that, like, or you have to like fill that particular gap, or you just want to bring out the knowledge or say wisdom of that particular topic to the audience. So you always work through the audience point of view as well.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just for yourself.
Every
Yeah.
time, yeah.
So how do you keep your audience engaged through those particular thing? Because then once we have this kind of a conversation, we know like this is going very candid one, we are talking to each other, but then a person listening to that particular episode or this particular episode will be able to relate or will be applying whatever we have talked about. or whatever is being shared onto this episode. So what's your strategy about that particular thing? Or do you have any kind of a listener interaction segments or community building initiatives as well?
I do have a bit of them, but I don't really stress upon them. I mean, on the community building part, because if you look at software testing, there are a lot of existing communities which are already there, and people are already part of it. There are a lot of people who are part of a lot of communities. So that part is not still figured out. I don't want to build a community for sake of building a community. So that is one thing that I'm still thinking about even after a year. That people are already part of, let's say, 7, 8, 9 communities, and they don't want to have the same experience when, let's say, whenever I start a community, they don't want to have the same experience of from a new community as well. And it has been going in my mind for quite some time now that I want to build it, but I don't want to build it just because I don't have a community, or I don't have a WhatsApp group, or I don't have a Telegram channel, or I do have a Telegram channel, but it's not active. There are about 40 people on that, whom I apologize because not being active, but that purpose is still not there in that whole medium of community. So I don't want to just keep engaging my energy in that where I don't have really thought about it. So community thing is not there right now. I'm still thinking about it, still working on how I want to approach it or how I want to get it done for my way of doing things. Because I've seen a lot of communities, they do fantastic events, they do fantastic webinars. There are a lot of people who get help from the community, and people already have that. I mean, if I replicate the same thing, it doesn't make it different. So I don't want to do that. Then that's the one of the main reason why I'm not doing it right now. I don't want to be get involved. There's a lot of things which are already getting my energy. So I don't want one more thing added to the list. So that's one thing why I don't want that community thing happening. Listener engagement or the actual people who would benefit from the podcast, that usually happens through only my podcast, the LinkedIn post and the other podcast page posts that I usually do. Even on that front, from a engagement point of view, there are no listener engagement sections as such, but I tried couple of things like letting people ask questions before I record the episode, or letting people guess who is coming on the episode. Let's say I'm publishing an episode on a week after, and then I would ask people to guess based on couple of clues and all. It was a good way of connecting with people, and some people also found it interesting. But again, it was my my energy which was not ready for it. So that one was also again dropped. I usually just do engagement based on whenever my episode is coming. That episode and that week is where my most of the energy is. Once it goes back down, like let's say it completes about 1.5 weeks and all, then the things slow down a bit. And whenever next time, if a reference comes, or if something else comes for the same kind of thing, or there's a discussion ongoing, then I try to mention that, okay, this is something that is there on the podcast. If you are interested to listening more about this topic, then you can go XYZ, and then you can just listen to it. Yeah, and recently I think I tried my hand at hosting a competition, like a giveaway kind of a competition, which was there for one of the conference, who are again, they are a non-profit organization. So whatever revenues come, they invest in the teaching assignments or teaching classes that they usually do for free for people. So they invest that revenue into that. So that's why I wanted to do something for them as a free thing. So this is something that I tried there also. It was so quite good engagement. We got 3 winners at the end, and they were able to have the conference tickets, which were about, I mean, they're not that costly because it was an online conference. Something about, I don't know, $70 or $80, something like that. Yeah, each ticket was about $70 to $80. Yeah, yeah. So that's what people got. Otherwise, you wouldn't have spent that much money on a conference, right? Especially when it comes to subcontinent. So, so yeah, I mean, like you said, on the both fronts, it's the energy that I don't have right now. I don't want to get into that because there are already tons of things which are taking up my energy, and I need to do a better job on that, I think. And thanks for asking that question and reminding me on that. But yeah, I think that is something that is going to have a bit of 5-10 minutes time slot in my calendar to actually think about it. So maybe I'll start working on that.
And like podcast has, like the one episode has got the potential to be repurposed in a lot many ways. You can pull out a blog, you can create a carousel and whatnot. So that is the glory of this particular medium, is what I feel, because then it offers you a quite variety of the content that you can bring out of it. So that is something that we all have to try. And now with the development of tools, you might be aware, like with the AI and all that development, it's getting quite easier as well. But the main essence is of that voice, which is very human and which is very natural, so that AI can't replicate or won't offer the feel of that particular thing. And we have to preserve that. Only then we will be survived.
Yeah, I think that is our cross to bear. That's what
Yeah,
people say,
yes,
right? So
so
yeah.
true. And Gunesh, now coming on to the last part of this episode, would love to ask you what if thing. So, if you go back into time and give one piece of advice to yourself before you launched your first episode, what would that advice be and why?
I think one advice would be to have that consistency by one or the other means, because I've been very inconsistent lately with the episodes, with the recordings. And I know you can always make excuses, but that is something that I'm also good at. But but I don't want to get into that. And that, I think, that is something that I would have told myself 1 year ago, that you're getting into this, but make sure you remain consistent and you don't drop out in between. And that is something subconsciously playing still at back of my head. And that's why after a while I come out of shock and then I publish 2-3 episodes. That's what has happened last time also. But yeah, that is one thing that I would really say, because that is my current regret. That I don't want to be like weekly consistent or like 2 days an episode consistent. Just want 15 days a episode consistent. So that is something that is lacking right now. And I think that would be something that I would tell myself if I go back, that this is going to happen and don't do it. So yeah, I think I knew that this might happen, and I prevented it for quite some time. But eventually it caught up to me. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Every podcaster go through that particular situation. I have been there. And today itself, one of my connection asked me like what it would get to reach to that particular point where you get acknowledged, rewarded, or something like that. And I just said three words. It's more about the consistency, variety, and quality. That's all you need. And then you're good to go with any way. Like you don't have to like you just don't have to sound very fashionable or something like that, or you need a lot of equipments or something, because it's more about you and the purpose you are having behind the show. That will be your good to go platform for you, like that will keep you pushing ahead into this particular podcasting journey. And again, we are learning, we are evolving, and we are trying our best to do best for this podcasting industry. And Gunesh, your insights were incredible, your insights were totally top notch, and many people will be able to relate to your journey with respect to the podcasting. And whoever would love to start a podcast into a niche of say like technology or software testing or anything around that, so I'll definitely urge all the people, if you're into this particular domain, if you want to get a help, this is your go to go person. Please do reach out to him. And thank you so much for giving me your time and having this opportunity to record this episode with you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the kind words that you have said throughout this thing. Once I get to the episode which gets live, I'll cut it out and then we'll stitch it together. So that I'm going to do. So no, thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Even your journey, I've been following on LinkedIn, and it has been an inspiration. You winning an awards, and yeah, Hubhopper. I got to know one day late about the about the nominations. And I was like, and it came on some of the other groups. I was like, okay, fine, not this year, maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
So yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. So that's something, and yeah, congratulations to you again for winning them.
Thank you.
And I think I've said this time to time, but you have been that inspiration from the consistency side, at least for me. And yeah, the other two parts you already have. The quality is always there. So I've enjoyed couple of episodes which you had, and the insights obviously were really good. The way you take it out of your guest is, I think that's your skill. So that was that was really good.
Thank you so much for saying those. And we all are trying our best. I hope this industry evolves. I hope the community grows bigger and bigger so that we stay connected. We bring out such amazing episodes to the listeners and they enjoy as well, connect with us and have that conversation so that we make new friends, we make new colleagues or something like that. Yeah, that's all from today. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye bye. Take care. We hope you have liked the podcast episode we have had today on PodPeeps. By the way, if you want to join Podcasters community, fill the form from link in the show notes. And yes, thank you so much for being here today. Do send us a DM on Instagram at DFY Podcast if you follow Indian Podcasting Revolution. And if you are yet to follow, what are you waiting for? Follow it now and join us next week for yet another episode. This is your host Rohit, signing off.